Hey guys, Yips here, coming with another video, and this one is going to be an Argus the Unmaker DPS guide. This is going to be for Phase 1 and 2. I will today also be releasing the Phase 3 DPS guide. I'm just splitting them up because they are slightly different in terms of playstyle, so I just want to talk about them separately, and hopefully this gives you guys a good idea about how to DPS in Phase 1 and Phase 2. So the talents I'm going to be using for this boss fight are MG, Contagion, Soul Harvest, and Siphon Life. The legendaries are Hood of the Eternal Disdain and Soul of the Netherlord. Hood, obviously the best legendary for Warlocks, and the reason I'm using Soul of the Netherlord is because in Phase 3, that's the most important phase of the boss fight, you have increased DPS as well as Bloodlust, and that's when the boss actually needs to die. There is a hard enrage check that you do need to beat, and since the majority of the hard enrage check is an execute, Soul of the Netherlord helps you push past that just a little bit more. So, without further ado, let's talk about how to do DPS in Phase 1 of Mythic Argus. So, I'm just going to kind of play the boss fight while I talk about it, while I talk about what I'm doing, and then we'll go back and replay it and kind of analyze it in more detail. So, on pull, you're just going to be using your cooldowns like normal. You're going to be popping your Soul Harvest with Reap and casting 3 UAs into the boss. Everything just like normal. The thing about Phase 1 that you're really going to have to focus on is utilizing your Reap as well as your shards really effectively. In Phase 1 on Mythic Argus, if you fail a mechanic, you just die, which means there's a lot of movement that you are forced to do. What this means is you really have to time your drain cycles around that movement. I kind of noticed this as the more and more I pulled the boss, the more consistent I was with utilizing my drain cycles at the appropriate times, the better my DPS was and the more consistent it was. So I really want you guys to pay attention that every time he does a mechanic, whether it be Cone or if I get a Soul Blight or something like that, I am not using my, I'm not casting UAs towards the end of that. I'm not casting UAs directly after, but instead, whenever I'm having to move for something like this, I'm either refreshing my dots, casting Life Tap, doing some sort of instant ability that allows me to set up for Malefic Grasp cycles. What I mean by a Malefic Grasp cycle is, casting a couple UAs, pressing Reap, and draining. So I'm really trying to focus on, after he casts a Cone, I know no more mechanics are coming out for a little bit. That's when I'll set myself, I'll cast a few UAs, I'll press my Reap, and I'll drain. And then after that, I won't do it anymore. I will save my Reap, I will save my shards, I'll do everything I can to wait until that next moment where I'm able to stand still, I'm able to set myself, and able to get one of those cycles off. Obviously, Malefic Grasp cycles, especially when you have this additional haste or mastery and crit buff, are just super important. You'll do so much more damage with them, and so it's really important that you're standing still and able to get that uptime on your unstable afflictions with Malefic Grasp, at least as much as you possibly can. So here I have the 4 stack, and your Soul Harvest is coming back off cooldown. The way you're going to want to play with this is you're not going to want to start casting UAs as your Soul Harvest comes up. You want to start casting your Unstable Afflictions a little bit before your Soul Harvest comes off cooldown. The reason being is you're going to pop your Soul Harvest part way through your drain cycle, because then it lines up with this 4 stack. If you're pushing this boss properly, this timing will work out every time. You're going to have it so you have your 4 buff. It's going to have like 8 or 7 seconds left on it, and then your Soul Harvest is going to come off cooldown. You want to time it so that you cast, 2 to 3 unstable afflictions just 1 to 2 seconds before that timing hits, so you're able to pop Soul Harvest as soon as you start draining. This is just going to give you the maximum DPS benefit of that 4 stack as well as your Soul Harvest, okay? So this next phase is pretty simple. All you're going to be doing is, making sure your movement is as concise and clean as possible, and again, just making sure that you really focus on getting those drain cycles. So we're going to go back, look through that Phase 1 again, and then go through Phase 2 and kind of talk about the things that I had mentioned here, and hopefully you guys can kind of notice my playstyle a little bit more and maybe integrate it into your playstyle as well. So let's get back here to the pull. So obviously, again, just the regular opener, using your Soul Harvest, using your Reap on pull, but really pay attention to my Soul Shard usage as well as my Reap usage every single time in this Phase 1, okay? So here, just the standard Soul Harvest opener, I'm just, maximizing my Drain Soul benefit on my Unstable Afflictions, getting as much damage out as I can. I have Concordance and Norgan in proc here, so obviously that's really good. But you see here, I have 12 seconds left on my Reap. I have 1 stack of Reap. I am not going to use this. Whenever you finish using a drain cycle, do not immediately press Reap just because you have it afterwards. Make sure you're saving it for the next cycle. So you see here, he casted the Cone. I had additional Reap available, and I'm able to do this cycle on the boss. You see I casted 3 UAs with a couple stacks of Reap. I was able to get a crap ton of damage onto the boss during that proportion. I have 6 seconds left of that cycle. You can see my Reap had 6 seconds left, so I'm going to cast one more Unstable Affliction with that and move. Now I have 3 stacks of Reap. I have 2 shards. I'm going to be able to plant myself because the boss just did a cone cast 3 Unstable Afflictions, press Reap, and Drain. And this is how you're going to play the whole phase 1, guys. Every single time he's going to do a cone cast. There's going to be a little bit of movement. You're going to fill that movement with life tap or refreshing your dots, whatever sort of need that you have. And then you're going to plant yourself. You're going to have Reap and shards available because you've been saving them. You use it, you get a bunch of damage out, and then you wait. There's a lot of waiting on this boss fight, and you can't alter your playstyle based off your RNG, so sometimes, you'll have 100% Reap uptime in phase 1, and if that happens, just go wild. Sometimes you won't have Reap in phase 1, and if you don't, all you have to do is, just drain your regular dots, wait until you get Reap, and then when you have to move for a cast, you'll have that Reap available, and you'll be able to get a good cycle off instead of kind of getting half-baked cycles during this phase. It's much more effective. So you see here, I knew I was going to have to move. I have 5 stack of Reap, and even though I had my 4 buff, it wasn't worth me using that 5 stack because I couldn't get a UA drain cycle off, so I made sure I waited until I was moving into a position where I could stand still, and then I'm able to cast my Unstable Afflictions as well as get that huge Soul Harvest off, okay? So really focus on that during phase 1, really focus on working on your movement as well as getting concise drain cycles off, and you'll notice your DPS will consistently just get higher and higher, okay? Now, obviously, like I said, some pulls you'll have more RNG than others, and this kind of a playstyle allows for that, If you're getting a lot of Reap, and you press it, it's going to transition over into the next cone phase, And if you're getting a lot of shard procs or whatever it is, you can always adjust your playstyle because you know when you're going to be standing still and able to get damage off. I would say on average, my DPS for phase 1 and phase 2 was around 2.2 million. Depending on your Warlock and your gear, it may be a little bit higher or lower, but obviously, damage in phase 1 isn't all that important. As long as you're doing probably above 2 million DPS towards the end of phase 2, you're definitely contributing positively towards your raid group finishing into phase 3, okay? So just one more thing to note, you do want to use your Berserking fairly quickly when it comes off cooldown. The reason being is it's just for a timing in phase 3. It's not too big of a deal. Also with your Soul Harvest, it's not necessary to use your 3rd Soul Harvest during this phase. It depends on your group DPS. So you see my Soul Harvest has 41 seconds left remaining on it till it comes back off cooldown. Now, you can use it if your group is struggling to push the DPS check in this phase. The DPS check being that when he hits 40%, he will phase, and if you wait too long to push him there, you'll get an additional set of these red circles. You don't want to do that because every time that he casts this red circles, there's just more and more. So obviously, if you can beat one cast of them, it's going to be very beneficial for you in the last phase when you have a lot less space to work with. So whether or not your group needs the DPS, whether or not, you see here we have a lot of people dead, so I'm going to end up using my Soul Harvest, is totally up to you. It really won't affect your DPS too much overall. Also, if you do use your Soul Harvest right away or not, it does not matter for your timings. So if you have it off cooldown and your group needs the DPS, go ahead and use it. So that was phase 1 and phase 2. That's how you're going to want to be DPSing during them. Just find time to make your movement concise. Find times to where you're not going to have to move your character so much, and you're going to be able to get those Malefic Drain Cycle chains off, okay? So thanks for watching. This was phase 1 and phase 2. I'm going to come up with phase 3 again, so if you guys want to watch that, just check for it. It should be coming up shortly after I release this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.